Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn. On this video, I'm going to show you how I make some wood and scrapbook paper earrings using my Glowforge. Now, I was on a forum recently and I got a great tip on how to do this. So if you're interested, keep watching the video. And then lastly, if you think you're interested in a Glowforge at all and you have questions, please reach out. And if you decide to buy one, I do have a discount link in the description below. Now let's jump into the project. I was on a Glowforge forum and I saw this idea that I thought was just genius, so I had to try it out. I tried it out yesterday and unfortunately the video did not work, but here's what I made. It's just scrapbook paper that's been adhered to wood and then cut on my Glowforge. And I'm going to stain the back of these dark brown. So I want to show you how I did this. To do this project, in addition to your Glowforge, you're going to need some type of scrapbook paper or whatever you want to put on the front of your wood. I'm going to use my little easy press iron. You could use a regular iron or a heat press. And then I like to mask my projects with this paper masking. Now in the Glowforge, if you're going to mask your materials, you definitely want to use a paper-based product. So I'll link to this in the video description below. I got it off of Amazon and you get a lot for a really good price. For my wood blank, I like to buy these pieces of decorative wood at the Dollar Tree store because they're a great thickness for earrings. You can't beat the price of $1. And they cut very well in the Glowforge. Then I'm going to use some Mod Podge. I'm going to use this type of sponge brush. You could just use a regular brush. Now when you do a project, you might want to do little sample cuts. So these are just tiny little circles that I cut out of the Glowforge just to make sure I have the right settings. Okay, so I'm going to do this two different ways. And I've already kind of pre-cut my paper. It's not exact, not a fussy cut or anything, but I've cut the paper so that I can adhere it to my witch. Now before I do, I want to go ahead and cut this white off. Also, this green piece of paper, this is more like cardstock. This isn't just regular scrapbooking paper, it's more like cardstock. So I'm going to do this in two different methods. On the left side, I'm going to go ahead and paint my Mod Podge on. I'm going to let it dry. Then after it dries, I'm going to add my paper and iron it on. The heat of the iron reactivates the glue and it sticks the paper on and it is so smooth. On the right side, I'm going to go ahead and put the Mod Podge on. While it's wet, stick my paper down. I have this little bottle of Mod Podge. It's the matte sheen, and I just got this at the Dollar Tree. So I'll shake it up really well. And I put this on pretty liberally. Again, this is the side that I'm just going to paint it on, let it dry, and then add my paper later. Now for the cauldron side, I'm still going to paint a liberal amount of Mod Podge on. Then I'll go ahead and place my paper down. Now Mod Podge dries very quickly, and when you put paper down on it, the paper just soaks in the liquid. So if you're doing it this way, you have to act rather quickly. So I'm going to put my paper down, get it adhered down a little bit. Then I'm going to put some wax paper over it so I can really push down. And I'm doing this because if you don't get your paper really adhered down and into the Mod Podge, when it dries, you're going to see air pockets. Okay, that feels good. Now, I'm just going to let this dry for about 15 to 20 minutes because again, Mod Podge dries very quickly, and especially when it's soaking into a wood, paper, or other porous products. It's been about 15-20 minutes, and both sides of this are nice and dry, so we're ready to move on. Now, one thing I wanted to try, I'm going to put a little piece of paper up here, hoping to have an air bubble. I'm not necessarily going to use my Glowforge and cut anything out of it, but I just want to see if you do get air bubbles, because oftentimes when it dries, you do have them. I want to see if ironing it later will help those air bubbles come out. So I'm not really going to push that down very hard. All right, so hopefully that'll have some flaws in it. Now I've put my little Easy Press Mini on medium, so I'll give that a minute just to heat up. I just heard my Easy Press beep, so it's up to temp. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay a piece of butcher paper on top of my paper. Now, if you were really concerned about sticking, you could put a piece of wax paper down and then a piece of paper, whether it's copy paper, computer paper, on top of that to protect your Easy Press from the wax. But when I did this last night, I really didn't need the wax paper. So now I'm just going to press down. Now remember, this is the one that already has been adhered down to the Mod Podge. So all I'm doing now is just smoothing it out. And I'm putting some pretty good pressure down against that. All right, that feels very good. So now over here, my dry Mod Podge is right here. On this side, since I am going to have some Mod Podge exposed between the two pieces of paper, I am putting a piece of wax paper down first. Now I'm just going to press down in one place for maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and then slowly move this around. And I'll probably leave a lot of this in real time so that you can see just how long I did this. Okay, so I've just done this one edge. Let me check it. Okay, so it's not sticking here because there wasn't Mod Podge under it. It's very, very stuck here. So that is working beautifully. Okay, that's a great result. Now, it's already started to stick up here because I accidentally got it on that. So I'm just going to have to leave this sheet alone, not readjust it. Now, I want to stay off this for now. Okay, notice it's sticking up here where there's no paper. So that's the only place it's sticking. Now, hopefully you can see that is super smooth. All right, this may not be quite dry yet, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Okay, that's very smooth now. And you know, I only waited, what's it been, 5, 6, 7 minutes? Yesterday, when I made my other earrings, I waited probably about 2 hours before I ironed the paper on. Today, I only waited 15, 20 minutes. And then up here, a little over 5 minutes. Okay, so now the next step before putting this in my Glowforge is to give this a top coat. Now I'm going to start with my foam brush. Get it moved around and smoothed out quite a bit. And then I'm going to take this really soft brush and just try to smooth it out even more. I'm not even pushing down. I'm just pulling across the Mod Podge. Now, just like I talked about before, you do have to work very quickly on these steps because the Mod Podge does dry so quickly. And see, this is already dry to the touch. Now, I wish I had my spare piece from yesterday up here because I tried another process. I tried to do the whole thing, put my Mod Podge on, put my paper on, iron it, put another coat of Mod Podge on, and then I put a piece of wax paper and paper over it and ironed again on top of the top coat of Mod Podge, and my wax paper stuck to it. Once your top coat of Mod Podge goes on, don't iron it again. Now in 30 minutes, this is going to be ready to go in the Glowforge. Okay, this is dry. I want to go ahead and trim it from the back side so that when it's on the bed of my Glowforge, I can tell exactly where I can cut and where I can't cut. Now here's another way you can mark it, and this is easier. Just take a pen that you'll be able to see and mark the lines where you can't cross over. Now I want to go ahead and trim the bottom of this green one because I want to show you what happened here. Remember, this is the thicker cardstock type material. And whereas the paper dried beautifully, didn't come up, didn't end up having any air bubbles, ironed down super flat, the cardstock did not. And I see a little air bubble here. So I don't think cardstock works well with this process. Now, since I can't use it anyway, I'm going to go ahead and experiment. But I think the same thing will happen that happened last night, and that is my wax paper is going to stick to the paper. But it's ruined anyway, so I might as well experiment. Okay, yep, that's what happened yesterday. Now to cut this out of the Glowforge, I want to know the thickness of my material. So I have this little pair of digital calipers. It's turned on and the jaws are closed, and it is measuring 5.99. So I need to go ahead and hit this yellow button, and that zeroes it out. Okay, so I'm just going to open those jaws and close them tightly. And this is showing, well, it's fluttering between 0.09 and 0.1. So I'm going to use a setting of 0.09 when I put it in the Glowforge. The last step before I put this in the Glowforge is to mask it. So I've cut my masking paper. And remember, we marked where we didn't want to go outside of. And so when I put that on the bed of the Glowforge, you'll see on my computer screen that you can see where those lines are. At least that's the goal. What I can do just to make sure is I can go ahead and transfer those now to the top side. Then, because I was annoyed that my cardstock type paper didn't work, using the process of ironing it down to dry Mod Podge, I did another one. This is just a little scrap that I had left from a prior project. So this time I put my Mod Podge down. I actually put a really thin coat on the back of the paper, laid this down, adhered it really well, and then after it dried, I went ahead and used my iron and then added more Mod Podge to the top. And this time it looks fine. I'm on a laptop and I'm in the online Glowforge app, and I'm going to cut these earrings right here. Now the way I've named them, I can tell they're 1.6 inches wide and 2.25 tall. So if they take up too much room, I can adjust those in the Glowforge app. So I'll go ahead and click open. You see my design showing up on the bed of the Glowforge, just superimposed on top of my material. So I'm going to go ahead and move a set of earrings over here. Now the little bitty hole that you see, that's where the jump ring will go through. And you can see it's on a different layer. I like to have those on different layers so that I can do the small hole first and then the large hole. If the small hole showed up on the bottom layer, I can just drag these to change the order. Now it looks like this left one is a little lower, so I'll move that up. Now I'm just going to drag my cursor around both of those, hit Command C for copy, Command V for paste. Now I can drag this set over here onto my red design. Okay, so then I'm going to go up here to Unknown, and I'm going to say I'm using uncertified materials. And my material thickness is 0.09, as we saw on the digital calipers. Now you notice the screen jumped. It may be resetting itself, kind of recalibrating. If I want to force it to refocus, I can click here and then say set focus, and I could say let's set it right here. What that does is now the Glowforge is going through a focusing cycle, and in a minute when this focusing word disappears, I can see if my design is really where I want it. Now I think this one looks fine. I do want to move especially this left earring over just a little bit. Then I'm ready to set my settings for my cut. Now this is already set to 225 speed and full power, but let me show you how to do it if it wasn't. You just click on the layer, and then you might see this screen. Do I want to engrave it or do I want to cut it? And I want to cut it. So I've clicked on cut, and now I can add the settings. Now I'm going to go with 225 for my speed and full power. And number of passes, 1 should be good. Now notice I have the focus height on auto, so honestly I don't even know that I needed to set my 0.09, but it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so these settings are already where I want those, so I don't need to redo that. And I'm ready to hit the print button. Now I'm not sure why it says print, because I'm really cutting or engraving, but that's the lingo, so I'll stick with it. So I'll click on print. Now it's preparing my print, and in a minute it'll let me know how long it'll take to cut these out. Now with a basic cut like this, it is super fast. There you go, 36 seconds. So now I need to go in to the Glowforge, push the magical blue button, and we'll watch it cut. Here's the 2 pair of earrings that I just cut out of the Glowforge. Now I haven't taken the paper off yet. I thought I might actually be wise and stain the backs before I take the front protective paper off. So I'm going to go ahead and flip those over. You need to either mix this up, or some people say don't shake your stain. I've never had a problem shaking stain. I do have a problem shaking polyurethane or polyacrylic. Now this is called dark walnut, and it's going to be really dark, but it's going to be a nice dark brown color that'll blend in well with the sides. So I'm just going to use an old sock and wipe a thin layer of stain on the back of each of these earrings. Now I probably want to be careful I don't drag it and then get the front sitting in stain. I didn't think about that. Now I can let that soak in for just a few minutes, and then it'll be dry enough to the touch. I'll be able to flip these over to the front and take that protective paper off. I notice on the back of this one, I'm going to guess I had a little Mod Podge under there, and that didn't take the stain. So I can take a little brown marker, a little paint, or I could sand it down and add more stain. Okay, I got stain on the front of this paper. Hopefully it didn't bleed through. Let's see what we have. That turned out very, very nice. The other thing is, I would wait more than 5 minutes after handling the stain before messing with these. And then my last red one, that one turned out nice as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get some hardware in these, and I'll show you a picture at the end. Now 3 of the pairs of earrings are all done. I've added my hardware and they look so cute. But I wanted to give you a few final thoughts. Other than the cardstock type scrapbook paper, putting the Mod Podge on the wood, letting it dry, and then ironing the paper on the top worked fine. With the scrapbook paper, it really did adhere very well. But there's just something that makes me uncomfortable with not putting the paper down in the wet Mod Podge. So in the future, I'm still going to go ahead and add the paper onto the wet Mod Podge, but then after it dries, I'm going to go ahead and use the iron to really press it in well and smooth it out. Thanks so much for joining me and sticking it out till the end. Until my next video. Bye-bye.